Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford in Texas, good old US of A. Incredible guests from all over the world. I think I counted the number of countries the other day. We're up to 20 or 25. And in 2024, we just switched to 3 shows a week, maybe to beat the algorithm, but I think it's just to help you have an amazing assortment of guests. And again, that's 3 shows a week. So in 2023, we had 50 shows. That's 112 shows now in 2024 that are already booked, spoken for. And by July-ish, we'll have those all taped and done. So we're already booking into 2025. Again, incredible experts, New York Times bestsellers, youngest Delta Force operator ever who's got a naturopathic background nowadays, shared some amazing stories online, professors, researchers, healers, a Miss USA, I mean, all walks of life. And what's incredible about them is they've lived a certain way, that they've had their foundation expanded, also near-death experience people. And now they're giving service for the most part to others. They're helping people, or they have a perspective that's inspiring and helping you, the audience. So without too much more adieu, we have Pat Longo, spiritual healer, absolutely an incredible individual from New York. Long track record doing this. If you want to think Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo or Kim Rousseau, but Pat's her own person. Pat has her own abilities. She's been doing it a super long time. She's super inspiring and she's touched a ton of people. Pat, welcome to Angels, Positivity, and Love. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I'm excited. I've been thinking about it for weeks.
Aw. And when you and I first connected, woof, you have so much energy. And again, you've been doing this such a long time. Can you kind of give us the overview of how do you fall into this? Has it been since you were the age 5? Give us the background origin story.
Well, origin story. I was always a little bit different. Come from 6 siblings, and my mother always said I was a little different just because I like black and white movies. I like to read books. I like to stack books. I didn't like to necessarily go out and do other things. I was kind of to myself. And the gift itself, I was always interested in psychics. I was 25 when I met my first psychic or had my first reading. And I was just intrigued by it. So I started going year after year, once a year, psychic fair, pick out 2 people, see how they did. I didn't find anything terrific. I didn't know at that time that in 15 years I would be critiquing psychics, that I would be having fairs, and I would have such a high standard. So it was really for me to get that knowledge of having just the right person. And I do now. I mean, I have so many mediums that I've trained over the years. It wasn't my intention. It's not how it started. Healing was how it started. I found a class to attend in my mid to late 30s. It was a 10-week class. And on week 3, my hands were on fire, but I didn't know why. I really did not know why. I didn't know it had anything to do with class or the fact that I started to meditate. I prayed all my life, but I did not meditate. And after 3 weeks of meditation, something shifted. And when I went back into class the following week, the teacher had me touch a student that was in pain from a long injury from long ago and soft tissue damage. And I really thought the teacher was crazy, and that her name was Holly. She's since passed, God rest her soul. She's in a happy place. And I touched the woman, and in 2 minutes, her pain went away. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't think anything. I just put my hand on her leg, and that was it. And so it kind of put me in a tailspin. I found a book in the library called Healing Hands. I'm sorry, take that back. I couldn't find anything in the library. I found it in the bookstore the next day, and it was called Healing Hands, and it truly helped me understand the exchange and how it was coming through from a higher power. And I recommend it. It's on my homework to everybody, every healer or anybody else that just wants to send healing out to a loved one. If you have compassion, And if you have the intention to heal, you have the ability to heal. But it has to do with different levels, how many lifetimes you've lived. Maybe you've lived 500, maybe you've lived 5,000, maybe you've lived 50 or 5. So depending upon how many lifetimes and how much you've seen and done, that's how it enhances your gift. So I know I've been around thousands of lifetimes. I do know that. I don't know how many thousands. A very amazing woman told me that I came in 825 years before Christ was when I first landed here. So I guess I have a lot of background, and they have big jobs for me. My job is to ascend people and teach them to open up to the light and become light workers. So I've always thought of it as a spiritual army, light against dark. So that's my job. Just didn't know it. So anyway, I began to touch people. Life changed for me. I couldn't stay in my regular job behind a computer, typewriter, and because they didn't have computers, right? It was more a big, gigantic typewriter, and I couldn't stay there anymore. I was being called, and it was by word of mouth, and I just kept. I was in the tri-state area. I live on Long Island, so I was all over Manhattan and Staten Island and Connecticut and out all the way out to Montauk and New Jersey. So people just kept calling me, so I had to quit my job, and it was what I was supposed to do. I was meant to do it, and I got a beautiful automatic writing from one of my students, and they basically said, you've done everything you can here. You've opened all hearts, all minds, all doors, and now you have given us many, and we shall help the plenty. They just needed me to move on and do what I had to do. They told me my mission there was complete and that I had to go forward. And listen, I have 5 children. Had my husband was alive, certainly, until he was 63. So for a long time, the time of approximately 40 years old is when everything kicked into gear. And next thing you know, after I started healing people, I started teaching people. Because I said, if I can teach people how to heal themselves, then they don't have to come to me with a disease. So I started to teach, and that teaching class became 1, 2, 3, 4 classes, and 125 people coming through my front door every week.
Oh my God.
So after I did that I did that for over 18 years. And I stopped after my husband died for 2 years. And everybody kept coming back to me. So they kind of put me on the spot. And I said, all right, but I'm not going to teach 4 classes a week. Can't do that anymore. And I said I would teach. I picked one night and I put it out on Facebook to see who was interested. And then I had 90 people. I said, well, I can't do 90 people in one night, so that's not going to work. So we're going to have to figure something else out. I ended up going to a hotel. I sold my house and I moved in with my daughter for a while, and I rented hotel space so I could get more people in the room instead of just the typical 20. So now I could have 40, I could have 60. It didn't make a difference. I picked 3 nights, and no, actually 2 nights, 1 morning, and I took care of everybody. And that stopped with COVID, and Zoom appeared. So Zoom has opened me. Well, I've worked in 45 countries at this point, but it opened me everywhere. So they come from all over, which is amazing. And I was able to start an international class for the Europeans that are sleeping when I normally teach. So I have them today, actually, this afternoon. I'm carrying my computer with me, and I'm going to teach at my daughter's house today. And it's just amazing. I can't, listen, did I know that I was going to be given the ability to teach mediumship when I don't do mediumship? One of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is, how do you teach these people when you don't do it? Well, maybe because it's the best way, because I have so much faith because of the way my gift came. I knew it wasn't me. The second my hands got hot and I put my hands on somebody, listen, I knew it wasn't me. There was no question mark in my mind that it came from a much higher place. I didn't even deign to assume who it might be. I went with it, I trusted it, and I still do to this day. I don't ask questions. I don't worry about who my guides are. I know I have many because all my students do these automatic writings, which is channeling spirit. And they tell me there are too many, too numerous to mention. So I don't worry about it. Okay. I don't need to know their names. They're all around. I'm never alone. And they've protected me tremendously beyond even from physical harm. And I have had many, many, many falls. And not because I'm going to be 75 years old and I can't walk. I have had my son's bulldog has 75 pounds of muscle right up here. And I walked him a few times more than I should have. And he took me on a few journeys. I went over a boulder once and landed on my face in somebody's leaves. I went down a snowy hill on my back. He twisted me around, which caused me physical therapy. That was the only one that hurt. But he took me down. He took me down hard from the time he was a puppy. He started. I tripped going over a baby gate that he was behind, and my slipper got caught, and my glasses flew, my phone flew. I hit porcelain tile. I have hit more hard ground than you could imagine, and I do not bruise, and I do not break. Thank you, God. I don't. And it's incredible to me. I laid there once on the floor. That one time I laid there for about 15 minutes trying to assess what part of my body broke. Was it my wrist, my elbow, my shoulder, or my hip? And I didn't even have a bruise the next day. So I consider myself very lucky. I was even in a nasty car accident 2 years ago. A young new driver came out across traffic, and it was either me kill him or I swerve into oncoming traffic. And he hit me first and sent me 2 lanes across the traffic into a driveway, an actual parking lot. And nothing. I went, got CAT scanned, and the Blessed Mother fell out of my bag with my clothes in it, and she wasn't in there. I had a picture card of my mother's from when my mother passed, and it was not in my clothes. It was in my wallet, and somehow it ended up there. And as I took my clothes out to get dressed, it fell right on the bed. And I said, "Thank you, Mom," because I knew I was protected once again. The other young man didn't get hurt either, and both cars were totaled. So again, I consider myself very blessed and always have protection. I've had cancer. I don't even know if I discussed that with you when we talked, but I had cancer. I say I had it for 15 minutes because I don't think that way. I don't have fear. Fear is your worst enemy. So I basically, when people ask me, I say I had it for 15 minutes, and that's it. It was here, it was gone. I didn't need those parts, and no chemo, no radiation, no problem. It's been since December 2011. So I'm a long way out of that. I never expected any issues. And I've had heart disease, also completely saved. 98% occluded on the LAD, which is your widowmaker. And I pretty much told the guy giving me the angiogram, that's really not a nice thing to say to me when I'm laying here, that this is the widowmaker. And I already was a widow, but it's not, kind of plays with your brain when somebody says that, but I was fine. I said, don't give me anything I want to watch. I like to watch. I looked, it was very interesting to see all my arteries moving around, what was clogged and what was opened. So again, they want me here.
Has that changed over time? The arteries getting unclogged, or you just haven't looked at it since and it's working?
No. I do stress tests regularly. My cardiologist says I have a better heart than he does. And I've seen it. He shows me how everything works, points everything out. I slam the stress tests even more so than I need to. I feel fine. As a matter of fact, you'll be the first to know, I just got the best blood work ever yesterday. I
Good.
got my results yesterday, so it was phenomenal. So I am very excited about every bit of it. And my cardiologist is going to be thrilled. But it is, everything's perfect. I was right in the perfect line all the way across. So
Pat, can we back up to your hands? You've been primarily using your hands, plus you've had to talk, obviously, to help your students do stuff and experience stuff and to open up essentially and to become healers themselves, mediums. And it's not that you haven't done listening or seeing along the way. It's just your hands have been the patented PAT Longo hands are what we're talking about. Can you take
yes,
a moment to describe the beginning of the journey with the hands? Has it shifted that now you feel sparkles in addition to all the other ways you were using your hands, or has that been pretty consistent the whole time?
the hands are consistent. What I do is very different. When I started, listen, I didn't know what was going on, but I felt that I had to do more. I had to think when I was doing it. I started to engage my mind as like the director of where the energy was going. Now, I learned through others that could see, physically see spirit. I learned that spirit would send light, archangels, in fact, would send light from their hands into my head, and then it would come out my hands into the person's head. So I said, okay, I know where that's coming from at this point because I didn't before. And then I felt I had to direct. So I began to start thinking, I know things, I know a lot medically, a tremendous amount medically. I used to study medical books. I like to read them. When my kids were little, I like to look at symptoms. I like to look at causes. Everything was here in my cell memory. So you give me a spine, I'm going to go into that spine and I'm going to separate the vertebrae in the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral spine. And then I'm going to take the discs out and I'm going to fill them with gel and make sure that they're the proper shock absorbers for the person's physical body. If somebody's got lesions on their brain, I'm going to use a fine sander because I also know a lot about that. My husband worked with his hands; he was an engineer, so now I'm lightly. I use my brain for everything. I'll go into an ovary and shrink cysts or whatever it is. I know where I have to go. If it's a disease that I'm not familiar with, which did happen once, and I may have talked about it with you, but a little baby came to me, Angelina, and I thought she was appropriately named. And excuse me, she was a hair over a year old when she came to see me, and she had something called ringed 22nd chromosome disease. Now, the internet just came out. So I went up and I tried to figure out what it was before they got there because I like to know what I'm doing, and I knew nothing about this. And so the chromosome somehow is supposed to be two straight lines, and it turned out to ring whatever it did. Again, I'm not a scientist, I know nothing, nor a medical doctor. And so when they came in, she presented as if she had cerebral palsy, no muscle tone, chin down, eyelids full, heavy, couldn't stand, couldn't do anything. Dad was carrying her. So mom sat down in a folding chair, put the baby here. I knelt down on the floor and I just caressed her from her skull to her tailbone. And I just asked for whatever she needed to be repaired because I couldn't figure out the chromosome thing. And which told me I didn't need to actually, but that's where the brain goes. We're always trying to take control. So in 10 minutes, she stood up and started to jump up and down on her mother's lap and throw her head back and laugh. Good Lord, did this baby laugh. Now she was cried. They said she cried all the time. And that's why her dad had to take off from work so the mom could sit in the back seat and hold her because she was always crying. She had already had a kidney removed before she got to me. This ringed thing, 22nd chromosome, it changes all kinds of things in your body. They go helter skelter. And with every client, every patient, it's different. So there was nowhere for me to go except to leave it up to God at that point. So I did. And the first time that she came to me, her arms were corrected, her arm muscles, her leg muscles, her throat, she was able to swallow. And she was able to have bowel movements, which she couldn't have before. She had physical therapy. She had, enemas, everything, every day of the week, because she had, she was born with it. So state supplies. And she came back 2 months later on her way to the hospital to get pre-surgical testing, to get her ureter reattached to her bladder, because that was the next thing that had gone haywire. So she was asleep when she came in. I worked on her when she was asleep. I talked to the parents till she woke up. And what corrected that day was her spine. So her spine was, she was able to hold her neck up and her head up straight and not fall over, which is what she was doing before. So all of that fixed itself. And then I saw her one more time, and another 2 months later, and I went to her home that time. And she was sitting on the floor playing with her toys like any normal 1.5-year-old child would be. But she got up, she cruised the furniture. There was a big entertainment unit, and she walked all the way around, came all the way around the couch to me, and she stood there. And I certainly I wasn't there to do a healing on her, by the way. I was there to do a healing on her brother, who had night terrors, and he was older. So I did the healing, and then I went to do my work with the little boy. And mom got in touch with me a few months later, and she told me that her circulation completely cleared after I saw her that day. And I didn't even know she had a problem with her circulation, but she said when she went to change her into pajamas that night, she was pink like everybody else instead of purple and blue and white and spotted. So, I know they moved out of state. I heard nothing more after that, but I know that there was a very happy little girl and very relieved parents. And so, I'm always amazed and humbled by everything that I see. But she was very early on. So she would have to be at the very least 25 years old by now. And listen, I see miracles every day, Michael, and it shocks me. It never fails to shock me or humble me. And not everybody gets healed, and not everybody's supposed to be.
That was the next question: is some stuff written and they're supposed to go with it because that was the plan? Although there may be symptoms that can be addressed where you can have a chat and maybe turn the volume down. If it's a wide
Yes.
panoply of stuff, there are certain areas you can ask about it, and sometimes the volume can get, if you're shaking because of a disease, you can get that reduced. Has that been your experience? That
Yes, my experience is that I have to counsel people before I heal them. I need to teach them. I need to teach them that some things have continued from other lifetimes. I've had to teach them that we made agreements on the other side with our parents, with our relatives, with our partners. We made agreements, and some of them were very tough, but we chose to come back here to Earth School and play out those agreements. And that's hard for people to hear when they've been abused or they've been sexually violated, but that happens to be the truth. So when I can teach them these things and I can have them forgive those people and say, thank you for teaching me what I need to do in life or what I don't need to do. And look at it and say, thank you for teaching me to be a better parent, a better partner, a better friend, a better sibling, whatever it is. It's about that. So when I'm able to teach that and teach forgiveness and let people release a lot of the pain, then their physical symptoms start to heal. In the beginning, you asked me earlier, in the beginning, when they first started to come, I would just put my hands on people. I didn't talk to them. What's wrong with you? And then I would just go about my business. And I would tell them they didn't have to come back because this is a God thing. And that's what I would say. I have nothing to do with it. I did my job, go home. And I don't do that anymore. What I do is I give people the option. I tell them, I don't want you to come back, because they all ask me, well, when should I come back again? And I'm like, you don't have to come back again. If you feel a big change in your body, or your blood work or your CAT scans tell you something different, and you want to see me, I'll see you. I'm not taking your money or taking your time or my time if you're not healing. The teaching piece is really important. and they have to hear what I say, and they have to begin to let go of things. They have to eliminate guilt and shame and anger and fear. And fear is your worst enemy. Once again, it always will be. And people don't get that the only thing they have to fear is fear itself. This little word, false expectations appearing real. And once you can clear that, things get a lot better. And you asked me about, well, I'll use my husband as an example. My husband was diagnosed with cancer in 2002. And he was, let's just put it this way. He didn't have a problem for 9 years. We kept things under wraps. He had 21 surgeries. He had a lot of chemo, which was his choice, but I told him, you sleep next to me. So therefore, just by osmosis, you're getting energy healing done all the time. He never missed a day of work. He never missed a day of work. He was there. Nobody was any the wiser. You know, he didn't talk about it. And, but in the 10th year, it turned a corner. It metastasized. And when it did, there was nothing more that we could do. It was his time. As hard as that was for either of us to accept, it was his time. And, you know, I do my job.
And you've connected with Vinny since then. So it's not like he's, can you just share a couple of abstract ways that you know he's there? It's death is not a finite thing. Can you just cover that quickly?
Oh, I can tell you a very interesting story. A few months after he passed, and he passed in August, and it was cold because I'm always hot as a healer. My body is always hot. So comforters and things like that is not something I do. I have a fan on me 24, well, not 24/7. I have it on every day of the year at night when I sleep in my face. And I heard footsteps coming up my stairs in the middle of the night. It was 2:43 to be exact, because I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and I pressed the alarm. And I thought it was one of my sons. They all work at night. They have keys to my house. They don't live at my home. They were all married. And so I didn't even think about it. I just thought they were being very noisy. And then they came down the hall in my direction, which they shouldn't have. They should be going the other way. So as whoever it was stepped in from the carpet into my room on the wood floor, I knew I was in trouble, or I thought I was in trouble. And I assumed it was a home invasion. And my back was to the door, and I was looking, what do I have to defend myself? And I really didn't have anything that was going to help. And I was in a full motion waterbed. So for me at 4'10", I need 2 bounces to get out of that bed. So there was no way I was jumping. So I had to look and face whatever it was that was coming at me. So I pulled my comforter in really tight, and I peered with one eyeball, and there was my husband. He was standing right at the foot of the bed with a red t-shirt on that my daughter gave him for Father's Day. And as quickly as I saw him, he disappeared. But I knew he was still there because I could feel him. He walked around to the side of the bed, but he took away all my fear at that point, because I was afraid of a human, not a spirit. And so he came, and then he went around to the other side of the bed. I heard the covers come up. He got in the bed. I rolled over. There was a physical presence. I put my arm over him, and I'm going to say it lasted about close to 15 minutes. And it just kind of dissipated, and I went to sleep, and it was the most beautiful feeling. And that was the time I physically saw him. So that should be enough for people. But he came and visited me many times after that, but not like that. It was always my hands. My hands would lift up one finger at a time off the pillow, and they'd come up in the air, and my soft, small hands would become large, rough hands. And he actually used my hands as his hands. And he would wipe my tears. He would put his hand and my hand on my heart. Sometimes my arms, I had no control over this. It was involuntary movement. But it was always the middle of the night, just as I was about to fall asleep, which you're in a state of alpha, which is what you are when you're going into a dream, when you're daydreaming, when you're under hypnosis, when you're meditating. So my arms went up and they would go around him and they would just stay there. So it was crazy, but it happened about 25 times. And it's been a couple of years. It really, it's been a couple, but I smell him around. I'll smell his, he used to smoke cigarettes. So if I walk through a pile of smoke, the first time I smelled it, I said, "Are you kidding me?
No
That's
more.
what you're gonna
Yeah.
give me?" I'm very sensitive to cigarette smoke. He never smoked around me, but it was his calling card. So I still get it once in a while. But my granddaughter is a medium, and she's been seeing spirit since she's 10 in 3 dimension. And the
Don't you
first
have
person,
17?
I have 17 grandchildren, yes,
Okay.
and many of them are gifted, and I'm finding out more and more each time. Because I don't shove this down anybody's throat, especially my grandchildren, without permission of their parents and so on and so forth. But I'll sit and I'll teach them how to manifest, or I'll do a little healing on them. They all come to me for healing. So if they hurt themselves in sports and this and that and the other thing, I'll be doing healing, and then I'll ask some questions. The next thing you know, they tell me, "Oh yeah, well, I had a premonition and that happened," or "I dreamt about this." And I recently found out that one of my grandchildren has been dreaming of my husband, and he's been having many since he passed. So he's 22. He just graduated college, and or about soon to be 22. And so I know, I'm watching, but this little one had terrible anxiety at 8 years old. And I knew when I see somebody with anxiety, I know where it's going. They're highly gifted. So I I was the first person she called or pulled into the room when she saw her grandfather for the first time. But she's a real tough customer. She's a tomboy. She's 18 now. She had no problem hearing what I had to say. And she immediately said to me, "Can I ask for anybody I want?" And I said, "I don't see why not." And she had lost her grandmother after my husband. So I said, she wants to see her grandma. And then she said, "Well, how do I talk to them?" I said, "In your thoughts." She said, "Well, what do I say?" I said, "Just like you're talking to me. How are you? Who are you with? What do you do there? Do you have a message?" I said, "Papa only wants to give you a message because he knows you can see him, hear him, or feel him." And I wasn't ready to open her up to this, certainly not at 10 years old. But I needed her to have boundaries, and I needed her to understand not to have fear, because that's the biggest mistake people make, is putting fear into it. I can't do that. So we told all the people in the next room, all the adults at the party, and they were watching football. It was heading towards Super Bowl. It's January 19th, going back. And when I told them, Riley, that Papa was at the party, they got really quiet. They got very silent. And my daughter-in-law, her mother, said, "I don't think I signed a permission slip for that." And we just laughed. So it knocked down all that stuff. The TV went back on, and I went in the next room with her, and she was ready to go again. She said, "Can we try again?" "I think I want to do it again." That's what she said. Those were her exact words. And I looked at her. I said, "You do?" And she said, "Yeah, I think I want to do it again." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "I want to do it now." So I took her to the stairwell, and she ran upstairs by herself. I said, "You go in Papa's man cave, sit there and ask for who you want." I told her exactly what to do. And she came back and got me about 20 minutes later and pulled me to the stairwell. And I said, "Did it work?" And she said, "Yep." I said, "Who did you ask for?" "I asked for Papa." But this time he stood in the doorway, because they were in a 5x7 bathroom when he showed up. He stood in the doorway, which was a good distance away from her. And she said, "I spoke to him in my head and I saw his mouth move, but all I could hear was a buzzing sound in my ears." And I said, "That's because you're not ready to hear yet. And that's okay." That's all we needed to do. And then she saw many after that. She picked up hitchhikers in her room when she was 14. She picked up a hitchhiker in her car that was a 7-year-old. And
Hitchhiker, just passerbys.
spirit,
Spirit, yeah, just
spirit,
passing
yeah.
through.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
the man stayed in her room, her bedroom, for a couple of months. I kept telling her, all you have to do is tell him to leave. You command your own space.
Yep.
But she said, oh, he doesn't bother me, Grandma. He just blocks my bathroom. I said, okay, but you really don't have to. You just tell him to go. All right. So a month later, I asked her again, do you still have company? Yeah, but he only shows up when my girlfriends are sleeping over and we're up late. I said, you need to tell him to go. And then the next time I asked her, she looked at me. I kind of gave her a funny look, like an eyebrow. And she said, he's gone, Grandma. And I said,
No.
how did that happen? She said, I told him to leave. I said, I rest my case. That's all you ever had to do. And you picked him up from somewhere. You either picked him up at lacrosse, at school, at religion. She's an altar server. Maybe you picked him up in church, but you picked him up. He belongs to somebody else. He's not our family member. I don't know him. He's not attached to this house. So anyway, we laughed about it. But the next little boy that showed up was about 7. And she told me that he was in the car, in the back seat of the car. And I said, whose car? And she said, it doesn't matter, mommy's or daddy's, he's in the car. And I said, well, he's lost. And I'm going to teach you how to help him get where he needs to go. And I explained to her how to bring him into the light. And I said, call in some angels and have them take him by the hand and bring him into the light. And she did it. And that was the end of that. So we don't talk about it anymore because she's in college and she's busy. And I want to keep it down low. I said, just make sure your protection is on. You
Yep.
always have to have your protection. And I gave that to her at 8.5, and she stopped, her anxiety stopped right then and there. So, I wrote the book about it, The Gifts Beneath Your Anxiety. People are very gifted. They don't think they are. They don't think they are. They think they have terrible anxiety and there's something wrong with them, or they're depressed and they have to take medicine. And that's not the case. They just don't know it.
I
So,
had 2 quick stories. Our first Austin home, we would sit in a living room and there were these stairs that went up and then they V'd. And there was a platform in there somewhere. So a platform and then a V. But we'd be watching TV and these are positive visitors from all over the universe. So it was kind of like being a fish in a fishbowl. Over the years, you would catch light go up and across the stairs or just a ball of light or something all positive. You'd be watching TV, the brain would want to dismiss it, but you'd turn and be like, did you see that? You'd check with
mhm.
the angel and be like, just someone checking in to see what was going on here, sort of in a positive way. And then one other quick story. If I was at a bookstore just doing my thing, looking at whatever interest I had, but I was shut off, like not that I'm resistant to helping people. I like helping people, but you got to have your own time.
You
So
have
I'm
to have boundaries. You have to
yeah,
have
and I'm looking at books and I see a woman coming in and there's the equivalent of the doorbell ring. And I'm like, whoa, I switch aisles. I usually get 3 tries because
yeah.
they'll come across my path 3 times. And by then I've sorted it out. And I'm like, even in the parking lot, I'll be like, hey, how's life going? They usually tell you something and then you can get it done. But this time, like I shift aisles, she shows up again and we start talking. She's lost her teenage son. So she gets what she needs. I do my thing, but she gives me a hug. And on the boundary thing, I'm still learning the boundaries. When you get a hug from someone, that skin to skin contact, the rest of their Samsonite luggage comes flying off. You get it. And then the car, my attic at home, my fire alarms would go off to tell me later, hey, it's time to clean the house. The consciousness of the house was at least 1% to say, hey, clean me out, spring cleaning sage. So long story short, her teenage son, who wasn't bad, wasn't good necessarily either. He was 50-50. He would do some peeping Tom stuff, not for me, but for someone else. And
Mhm.
then I had these spaghetti jar things. This is not meant to be spooky. The only spooky thing I've said in 162 episodes. But my spaghetti jars ended up with knife holes in them.
Mhm.
Just he was being exploratory or whatever you call it.
Yes.
We had him go to the light with angels. But the last thing is I had this great flower vase, really thick glass, tall, formal. It was lasered through and it never moved from down below in the cabinetry, but it was kind of like a 14 or 17-year-old being rambunctious. And
Yeah, no, they can be very
yeah,
mischievous.
and he was gone after that. Like, I mean, not that we were hesitating in any way, but oof, that was my favorite.
But when somebody let's say that happens to somebody other than you,
Yeah,
who's was more open to it and things like that, fear can exacerbate it and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. People talk about poltergeist energy, old
yep.
movies and things like that. But what people don't recognize, you may think it's coming from outside, but it's actually coming from inside because the fear has made it larger and larger and larger. That's what makes it grow. So again, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. And, listen, there's so many books out there, your books, my book, there's so many things out there. There's so many teachers, there's so many people that are willing to help. People just need to learn to stop with the fear and use protection. Now, when I say protection, it is not because there's something to be afraid of. That is not what it's there for. It's to protect our energetic fields from taking on what happened to you at that bookstore.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what the protection was created for. It's like being a good Girl Scout or a Boy Scout and being prepared. That's what it is. And I don't go anywhere without prepare. As a matter of fact, each client that I see throughout the day, as I go from one to the next, because it's very quick. I don't have time to go eat something and ground myself or whatever. So I always re-protect. It's the first thing I do. The second I go to touch a person, I protect me first. Okay.
You come first in your world.
Yep. It's got to be like in the airplane. What do they tell you? Put the mask on you first before you put it on the child. And that's how it has to be. And if people follow that, if they protect themselves properly, I call it surround, ground, shield. But even when my granddaughter was little, I used the WWE belt, imaginary WWE belt, because I didn't know what to say to a little one. And I had done it to somebody before her, another little boy, actually, and it worked perfectly. So the second I told her to put it on and I poked her in the solar plexus, everybody's got to remember, a solar plexus is not your waist. It's higher. It's the soft spot below your sternum bone, what that pushes in. So that's where I touched her and I said, put that WWE belt on in your mind right now. And that was the end of her anxiety.
Can you talk to people about how an apartment or your dwelling or your house is your personal reality? You come first in your space. And that was something that I've moved on the East Coast, maybe 25 to 40 something times, depending on how you kind of move. And I didn't compute. It's not that I'm vacuous or vapid, but I'm slow in the uptake. I had to do survey says I bought my first home 2007, moved in around 2009, 10 in Austin full time, and I didn't get it. And I had to, if I talk to somebody in their 20s or 70s, they're all like, yeah, duh. I come first in my space, this and elbows out. And I had to acquire that, like cooking, put stuff up on the walls, color plants. I didn't have a green thumb before, growing stuff. Can you talk to us about how that's just almost a basic, it's before everything we've talked about, own where you're putting yourself and what you live in.
That's right. And I'll tell you something, I teach people in apartments to, when you sage, to send it through the walls.
Yep.
I tell them everything that touches you, anything to the right, left, above, or below, anything that touches your space, when you smudge, you're sending it right through. You send it through the walls and through the floor. And that's honestly, that's the safest way in an apartment complex to be able to protect yourself. But it is about owning your space. It is about knowing that you control your own space, and spirit is not allowed in your space if not from God's light or welcomed by you. Okay, now just when I say not from God's light, let's say those that are in God's light. You've got your angels, you've got your guides, you've got your loved ones that care about you. So they're in your space. And depending upon your religion, you might have saints in your space. So that's okay if you're comfortable with that. But anything that makes you uncomfortable, out. Kick them to the curb. Not allowed in my space. Plain and simple. And I put that on everybody's homework. And I say it very nicely on their homework. I pretty much say, only spirits who walk in the white light of God are welcome here. All else must leave by the power of the I am, which is God. When I say it to a client, when I'm actually sitting face to face, I pretty much say, no one's allowed in my space. Get the flock out. So I want them to feel that mama bear or papa bear feeling. Okay, I want them to know your space is controlled by you. And again, it's a really big piece of things for people to understand. Eliminate fear, command your space.
And speaking of big, can you talk to us about how big the universe is in a positive way and how maybe love really is the fabric of the universe? There's no need to fear or worry. You're protected if you'll just one,
Mm.
allow for it, and two, it doesn't hurt to ask for it as well, to trust in it, but also to ask for it, or however you would say it.
Love is the end all be all. It's all about love.
Mm.
And no matter how many spiritual books you read, you're always going to find that component in there. It's always about love, love of God, love of self, love of others, love of the universe. You know, I call, listen, I'm Catholic. I should say, I went to a Catholic school, was brought up that way. And God is very powerful to me. I work with so many different countries. I use the universe, or I'll use source, or I'll use the creator. I don't know what's out there until I get back there. I can't answer positively what's out in the universe, but I have spoken to people um, who have channeled, let's just say extraterrestrials. That's not where we were going, but I'm going to discuss it. And I have heard the downloads in what's called light language. They don't speak in a language that I could understand or we've been taught. And when it comes through, in this particular case, I listened to the download. And then when I felt the download had completed, I immediately said to whoever was sending this information, give it to this person, translate it in a language I can understand. And they immediately did. And they basically were just assuring me and, well, me, because I was the one asking the question, that they are protecting us, that there are many, 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 many galaxies that we
Mm.
know nothing about, and they are points of light. They actually called themselves the guardians of the galaxy, and they said they are
Oh.
points of light, and not everyone can hear them, their vibration. And they pretty much said, we're here, we're hovering, we're watching, we're doing everything we can to protect this planet.
Pat, I'm going to blow some sage in a little bit. It's a staple of the show. I'll put up a couple angel photos just because we've done this off camera a ton. And you'll do what you do, whether you want to relate something that they're relating or you're going to share something they remind you of that's good for all of us to hear. I'm going to read a little passage from a Listening to Angels book that's all written by angels and it should resonate.
Mhm.
But I wanted to mention, like, I saw two balls of light in my backyard standing next to someone that was before drones were popular. This is like 10 or 12 years ago. It was clearly objects moving that were red balls of light. And of course, I freak out over anything. Like, I saw light on my hands the first time and I was in my kitchen for 15 minutes yelling, what did I just see? What did I just see? Like a fish in a fishbowl. It could be any one of these little nuances, and there's thousands of them, and I freak out every time until I get over it. And so I'm a slow poke on the uptick, but on the uptake. But if I touch somebody on the shoulder or whatever, I'm fast on at least the teaching. But I heard from an angel named Charlotte, don't worry about it, you're protected, but that's also not something to put any of your attention on. And now, like in the last month, after 13 years of this, a lot of angels are giving me very galactic backgrounds. Orion, Sirius, Andromedus, Pleiades, Arcturian, I believe, is in the cards coming up. Not all angels are that way. They're all shapes, sizes, colors, and backgrounds. Can you talk to us about it's all okay? Love is way bigger than we're ever going to imagine.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And it is. And I've been blessed with the amount of love that I have. I get to share and receive, because it's also about receiving love, learning to receive, not just give. There's a lot of doers out there. You have to learn to receive. And most of us learn that the hard way. But this universe, I think, was built on love. And, it is growing your heart and sending light from your heart out to people, and love. I teach sending pink light and love out is something that I do as well, and push it out even to especially to the people who rub you the wrong way or you have a push-pull relationship with, because it will change. If you send negative thought forms out into the universe, guess what? It comes back to us like a boomerang and we don't see it coming. But when we send light and love out to somebody, we release it from us. We're holding that upset. And the second you begin to send light and love out and do something positive with love in the universe, it drops from us and the situation begins to resolve.
And a guest last year had a really unique take on that. They said, prayers, words through the heart, sending light. They said it also could be done this way. send it to that person's angel cheerleading squad, unconditional love team. They'll know how to distribute it. So in
Mhm.
case it's too direct for the situation, not that love isn't love, but she
No,
has
but
a way of
that's great.
finesse. I
Yeah,
like that a lot.
yeah,
'Cause then
that's
they know
great.
what to do with it and how to handle it. And I was like, ooh, unique. Um,
Listen, I had to get in touch with a nephew once and I couldn't reach him. He was in another state. And I really needed to get a hold of him. So, not that I sent love out, but I sent my angels out. I
wow.
sent them out to tap him and give him the thought. And he called me right away. I do it all the time. If I'm on a crowded beach and there's babies crying and things like that, I talk to their higher selves. I ask my higher self to talk to their higher selves to calm down the baby. So it makes perfect sense.
Mm.
Makes perfect sense. Spread it out to the higher beings and let them do the work.
Okay, I'm going to read something quickly. It's just angel writing, not just, but we'll get your reaction on it. But I want to get to the golden rule part. I thought this was cool.
Okay.
Being in the moment is to do compassion for all. For individuals, an egoless path would be great, but it's just not realistic. Allow ego to serve as a reminder when it pops up, a reminder for what you decide. How about a reminder to breathe? How about a reminder to enjoy each moment as it comes? Believe that all moments can be the same. Whether it's a moment at work or a moment looking at nature, all moments are the same and peaceful. Only thinking something can interfere with this. Likewise, there are not separate paths for man or separate worlds for individuals. One is one. Through awareness and owning the consequences of one's thoughts and actions, a person begins to see how all of life is truly interconnected in one. Faith in all, religious, non religious faith, letting go, faith in all can lead to a change in mankind. This is the path for all of man. This is about man bringing peace and joy to all. Almost done here. This is about your personal growth in your life and finding the next stage in your soul's development, as well as the continued evolution of mankind. The greatest gift is allowing all is growth and change. This is frightening for some. There's nothing to do here. Slow down the doing. Instead, breathe, smile, and relax. Appreciate all. Last paragraph. Compassion for all is life. This is also about acceptance for all. Regard others as yourself generously and without fixation. Believe in all. And I thought that was exactly what you were saying earlier.
My hair is standing up. I think you're giving me static
Did you
electricity.
like it?
Yes, I loved it. It was beautiful. And it makes perfect sense. You know, I always lead with love.
Hmm.
And, even sometimes when some people come in to my office and maybe my energy doesn't gel with theirs right away, I always know that they're there for a reason. I know it. And I know when they leave, everything has changed.
Mm.
It's a whole different energy field
So
about
patience.
that person. Yes, patience is a big one. And, and judgment too,
Mm.
not judging. And again, these are all the things that I've taught. Love and honor self
Mm-hmm.
and others, forgiveness of self and others, not judging someone else, reaching out to help someone without expecting a pat on the back. These are all the things, compassion, kindness, all the things that we're here to learn. And that's why we keep coming back to Earth School. We've got to get it down. Got to get
Feel
it
what
down.
you feel what you feel, do not judge. Even though everybody in the block could agree that Joe or Sarah is a jerk, leave it alone if you can find a little more space. It was Mother Teresa who said, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. So
Mhm.
that whole, was it ego? Yeah, ego is just a temporary lack of love and compassion.
Edging God out.
Exactly.
Okay, and I
Oh,
want everybody that's watching, when I want everybody to notice or try to focus in when you raise your arms and your
oh,
hands, that
here.
you have a green aura, which is the color of a healer, because I
I
can't get rid of
I
that.
had a whole well, I can't say where. I had a person from another country who's on a board of something, and they would see light coming off my hand as I was. I'm a very animated person,
Yes.
very clueless, but it's good in a good way. It's a good buffer for me. But
Totally.
you can see light though on anyone. Look at their nose, go to their forehead, and it'll be
I
there.
usually focus on the third eye there on the forehead.
Yeah. And then at a movie theater, respectfully from behind, down the row, when it goes dark, but the movie hasn't started yet, or eating establishments, people are very comfortable, very open. Again, have some good boundaries. So you're not picking up all their stuff, but you
Yeah,
can
you don't
see
want to
it.
stare at everybody either, but you could peek.
Yeah. The more you, it's like a boring professor or exciting professor, but you lost track of time. The 1 hour was definitely not 1 hour at university. It was like 15 minutes. It went by like that, or it went by like 3 hours. You're like, when's the
Yes.
class going to end? That's the letting go we're talking about for the vibe. Uh,
Yep.
I'm going to do this, blow some sage. And again, linear, you can catch sage, you can catch flowers. Why settle for just ho hum? Not that sage is ho hum, but you can have a little extra pizzazz anytime you want. Just ask the universe. It's endlessly, is it always endlessly surprising you, Pat?
Always.
You
Always.
can never peg it.
You're always humbled by the things you see and find out and hear.
Here's a little sage for you. Catch sage, but maybe catch an extra flower smell and a beach that is not nearby. Could be Elizabeth, it could be Rehoboth, Bethany, it could be Delray Beach. Let's go exotic, Cancun, Hawaii, Fiji, Bora Bora. What are you getting at year end, Pat?
What am I getting? I get Aruba.
Are you really getting Aruba as the ocean
What I
smell?
get, yep, I
Yes.
get Aruba.
And did you get some sage smoke too?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I've done each time that you've done it for me.
and
And
yeah, let's do this. I'll put up a couple photos, but it could be reminders for us. You'll just know what to do. You're a veteran, seasoned hand at this. Oh, I found a good expression. I found a very good expression. No pun intended there.
okay, no pun
Okay.
included expression. There's joy
Yeah, I didn't want to say old hand at this year, but you're a seasoned hand at this. Yeah, because your Pat Longo's hands are
on those hands.
like Bruce Lee's,
Mhm.
legitimate for what you do. Okay, what's joy got for us as a reminder? And if you don't mind feeling extra and even seeing pink sparkle around you in the air, something to celebrate you.
Mhm. Pink is not my favorite color, but I can see it.
Oh, it could be ruby. I mean, she'll do a little variation for you. The
That's
joy
okay.
of life.
I'm learning to like pink, actually.
I remember from childhood, like I must have been 3. I just remember a very intense but gorgeous, like red wine up against the sun, a ruby light that must have been her. That was just pure joy. Uh, I don't know how I remember that, but that I very strongly remember.
Okay, well, you were very lucky as a child. I didn't feel all that stuff then. I had other stuff going on, but not what you did that young. Most of mine came after my children were raised and the door opened. And that was it.
And what reminder do you have? Either she assisted you in remembering this, or she's got a boomerang for you of a topic to just quickly touch on.
I think it was an assist to
Okay.
remember that for me. I've had a very nostalgic day anyway, even before you
Oh
started.
yeah, no, we talked about that. And
Well,
thank
I
you
was
for
I
sharing
was
so
looking
much.
at my husband's pictures this morning, a lot of them. I just had to find a Halloween picture for somebody, and I ended up coming across a whole bunch of them at all different ages and stages, even when he was little. And I was rolling down memory lane very nicely.
We'll
Very,
do Audrey Hepburn for you, one of your favorites.
I love Audrey. Yes, she is one of my favorites.
And anybody at home wants to catch an uninvented perfume from France, why not? If you have to get out of your chair while you're watching this and do a Elvis jig or chubby checker, no one's seeing you. But if you are listening to this at the supermarket and you get caught, trust me, you've just opened up in public. You can't do a chubby checker by the vegetables in the supermarket without everybody
No,
laughing. You'll
no.
laugh and you'll be so open that you can hear her, smell that perfume, and even see her down aisle 7, a nice distance away, but have her show up with or without wings. Your call. What are
If
you
I
getting?
start, if I start seeing Audrey Hepburn in the food store, I may never leave.
Buy the frozen shrimp. I'm not kidding. Okay, what are you getting from Audrey?
What am I getting from Audrey? Oh, I'm going to say I'm getting from Audrey. I'm getting wisdom from Audrey. I'm getting integrity from Audrey. I feel inspiration. I love her. I always did. So this one's easy for me. She's always been one of my favorites.
And I'm going to put my mom and dad up. My mom passed when I was turning 23. My dad, when I was 2 in 1970, it was his time to go. His birthday would have been Friday, and then his death day, whatever you call that, was June of 1970. It would have been Monday, tomorrow. He was just turning 25. He had just turned 25, but they put him in Arlington in 1998. He knew he was going early. And he was just in for a short, beautiful thing. But that's Michael Andre Ford Sr., and that's Barb. Uh, and hundreds of people have seen them. And so it's not the same as when you grow up missing someone and you think they're gone.
Mhm.
So if Pat, could you address anything on any front, but also that when your loved ones are gone, they're not really gone. You're loved, you're supported.
They're always there to help and love. And, you know, I believe it. I teach it. I live it. They're always around. You know, I've lost a lot of people in the last 2 years, and very close. January, I lost two, and in June and September, I lost others. And it's been a long 2 years. And every one of them, every single one of them have come through so many times through the people that I train. A woman walked in here last week to take me to dinner, and as soon as she walked in the door, she said, "Oh, your sister's here," and she honestly, she read me right through dinner, and you name it. My husband was there, everybody. They just barrel right in, and they have a lot of things to say, and it's always about love.
Mm.
And it's always about being there and protecting us and helping us. And you know, you have to believe in something. And
Mm.
I, you've got the right person here, because that's my faith is the strongest part about me.
I've got Archangel Michael for you and a Charlotte. You've met both before, but Charlotte's just an angel who's like a teacher from third grade. If you're in Canada, third form, with words meant to help you expand. If you want to get either or both, we'll have a message or something for you to hopscotch to move to the next like talking point here.
All right, well, earlier I went with Michael. I'm gonna stick with Michael. So I've been calling on him a lot. So uh, again, it's all about being fearless. And Michael is the right hand of God. He is the one who does battle. And when I have someone with cancer that I'm working with, I call in Michael to do battle for them. If I have someone with a drug addiction, it's Michael that I'm pulling in to help them battle that addiction. And you know, he's top of the line, and he can be anywhere. Everyone has to realize that the angelic force out there, they're just waiting to help us. Some of them are unemployed. Oh, look at all those orbs.
That's a concert, a lot of angels, and Joy, the pink one, is there, and the bright purple
Oh,
just near her is
yes.
Claire.
Look at them. That's magnificent. I love it.
And Claire is resilience. Here's Claire, and then I'll put up Archangels one last time for our last photo, but she's resilience. And anybody needing anything at home, put your hand out, feel what you can feel through two screens, feel it on your hand, but if you try too hard, you get sparkle in your toes, down your back, you'll get a wind in the room. There's, I mean, a million ways feeling is feeling,
Trust. Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
brain can only block 3 or 4. It's pretty limited.
that's right.
One last photo, sort of. I heard this is like a couple houses ago and maybe 10 years ago. Hey, step out of your house, take a photo over the roof. And I'm like, okay. And I did it, and it was all the archangels. So whatever you want to do, chef's choice here. But here's all the archangels, and you should be able to feel that. Oops, sorry, dust. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, they look wonderful. Look at that. Look at all the color.
And can you feel it as well?
What's not to feel?
Yay.
What's not to feel?
And at home, you can close your eyes and have them come in. And I'll throw myself under the bus. I think I'm the #1 poster child candidate, whatever Hollywood poster, for being really slow on this front. So here we go. I had geometric light showing up on my eyes for like literally, I think it's been 12 years now. Eyes closed, eyes open. It was like tie-dye. It is tie-dye. It's like every 3 months, 1 month, not twice a year, more than that. But it's like really bright, colorful, laser-like light, like tie-dye. And so I'm an idiot. I didn't ask until a month ago what it was. I asked a bunch of people. I always like to ask like 5 people to make sure I correlate a little, triangulate. Because you know, I heard you're okay. It's not MS, plaque on the brain. It's as Charlotte said, like galactic codes or whatever. But Joy or somebody else was like, earth sacred geometry, and it's between the two. And I somehow intuitively was like, is it archangels? It's kind of smoothing you out, helping you just handle the next stage of learning that's ahead. That was sort of the answer, if nobody minds me saying it that way. But boy, how can I go 12 years and I forgot to ask anybody? Oh, I'm so
Well,
embarrassed.
that's a long time.
It is a
That's a
long
long
time.
time. Yeah, that's a
I,
long time.
I just trusted it. So, but I forgot that you can ask about this stuff and I
Yes,
didn't do it.
you can ask anything. You just
Yeah.
have to learn to listen. You have to hear that they talk in your voice, and it's not like somebody's going to scream in your ear. So you've got to allow the first thing that comes through your mind and the first feeling that comes into your body, just like what you're asking us to do when you put up the pictures. Feel it, think it, absorb it. And listen, it was there for a purpose. Everyone's being upgraded now. You were upgraded ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I've not been a pain for Pat, but we've had tons of fun. You have to give me a little shout out. I have not taxed you in any way. You've just had lots.
not
1
in
+ 1 =
any
111.
way. We had lots of fun even before we started. We were laughing coming in, and laughter is the best medicine.
Before we get to what's the easiest way a person can grab you, like on your website and stuff, what I wanted to do is I found that if you don't mind asking Charlotte, and we don't have to give any details to anybody, have we interconnected or connected before previously, before this lifetime? Charlotte will cough up the goods,
Lifetime. Mm.
and we don't have to say anything out loud. It's just get a little laugh.
Well, if you were a clown, I'd laugh, but
Aw.
I feel it was more serious. I feel we connected a long time ago. I
So
feel
I'll do a
very
Zen
strong. Yeah,
saying.
my eyes were closed.
There's all those strange Zen sayings meant to bring you to hear, like, what about it when the blind turtle finds the plank? And the answer is from the Zen master, it was no accident. And I'll leave it with that for maybe we've connected before. It's cute. They have a quirky way with Zen to just make sure, are you truly here or are you actually where most of us are? Like where I'll be at 3 o'clock today, stuck up in the brain again, being human. Pat, can people still get one-on-one sessions with you, or does it have to be okay?
No, I do one-on-ones, I do groups, I do all kinds of things. But one-on-ones, yes. The
Pat
best way,
Longo,
yeah,
patlongo.net.
pat.longo.net, or emailing patlongo1111@gmail.com. That's, my assistant right now, who I mentioned, has torn her Achilles tendon and is sitting in bed most of the day with my computer or her computer on her lap that's connected to me. So she's answering all my stuff. And so she's going to see it, front and center, because she's got nothing else to do. So
Awesome. Well, Pat, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It was a total pleasure.
thank you for having me. And I'm going off to be Nurse Nancy to my daughter right now. So thank you very much. And everybody that's watching.
Thank you.